Hello, adventurer. It's good to see you. You have made it to the morning grind.
Welcome, welcome.
It's the live stream at the beginning of the Geekverse, where we talk about all types of topics in geekdom, gaming, and fantasy, with an emphasis on being constructive and creating the things that we want to exist in the world.
It's all on the grind, Sizemore. Can't be too fine, can't be too coarse.
That's exactly right. There are a lot of adventures to be had today. Dungeons to explore and monsters to slay, and who knows what a random encounter might send our way. That's why we have to prepare, so settle in now for the morning grind with your favorite beverage in hand.
Tea? Or maybe something a little stronger. I've got a few bottles of the old Wynyard left.
Whatever you want. Pull up a chair.
Dude.
If you're feeling fancy, how about a cappuccino? Or a frappuccino? Or how about an espresso?
Just tea, thank you.
Sounds good to me, Gandalf. Whatever you want. I'm just glad you're here.
Everyone is welcome. You can just watch if you want. You don't have to worship anything you don't want to worship.
Thank you, Mike. But be forewarned.
Sometimes we get really strange characters around here.
Wait, what's that you say? Why can't you come and be a part of the stream?
My wife would disown me.
Oh no, I bet she'll be fine with it. Come on in.
Am I scared for my safety? No.
What are we supposed to do?
Everybody do the secret handshake.
Secret cultist handshake.
Oh, now do wizards who love each other.
This, my friend, is a science.
I still don't have gifts, but it's fine.
It's all on the grind, son. Can't be too fine, can't be too coarse.
Dude, this would be a sick place to bring the band.
Indeed it would be, Dave. It really would. I'm seeing more people coming in. Welcome. Glad to have you here. Oh, look, here's someone new.
Is this the cultist meetup?
Yes it is.
Come to hang out? Please accept me. I have nothing else.
Okay, we accept you. Everyone's welcome here.
Brought some snacks.
Well, that makes things even better.
You want some coffee? I don't drink coffee.
You sure? It's cultist coffee.
What makes it cultist coffee?
I'm a cultist and I'm drinking it.
Oh. Then I'll have some.
What exactly is going on here?
I'm seeing more people coming in. Welcome. It's so great to have you. Oh, and look, here comes another stranger.
Can we help you?
Yes, fellow cultists. I could really use some food.
Oh yeah? Welcome. We have donuts.
Oh, it's me. I'm glad I'm here. I'm sure you have a few questions for me, though.
What's your name? Who do you work for? What god do you worship?
Great questions, Rob.
I'm Steve King, and I worship Nyarlathotep.
No, not really. I'm just Heath, and I won't be worshiping anything this morning. But I will be your host. Welcome to the office. We're going to have a great time. I've got my coffee ready, because now it's time for the morning grind.
If you could become a fish, that would be amazing. Then I could command you with my mental fish powers.
Good morning, everyone. How are you today? I have continued to be having technical problems, but maybe I've got them all sorted out. Yesterday, I was getting a lot of work done yesterday afternoon, and then, man, my whole computer crashed, went out, and I ended up having to reinstall an operating system and just completely do all kinds of computer maintenance. Don't you hate it when that happens? That's a way to lose hours and hours worth of productivity. Hello, Zero the Blade and Nathaniel. Welcome, channel members both. Thank you. Welcome. So I hope you had a better evening than I did yesterday and had a productive morning today. So welcome. So I was trying to see what was going on in the news, and I didn't really see a whole lot. I didn't see a whole lot posted. There wasn't anything posted to Discord, and I was kind of making a glance past a few different places to see what was going on. Let me post the Ravenkeep Discord link. So if you do see something, there is a place to post news that we can talk about. If you see something that you think might be discussion worthy here on the morning grind. So that's what's going on here. I have still been trying to figure out I've still been trying to finish the interior of the Kickstarter page for Goodnight Sword, but because of the loss of the computer, well, didn't get to work on that yesterday. Is this already Thursday? I believe it is. So Thursday, this is Thursday. I was trying to find a interview subject for tonight for the for Table Talk to discuss things with, but I wasn't able to book anyone. So I don't have a Table Talk tonight. In the future, we may have to revive something like the wind down for those Thursdays where I don't have somebody for the Table Talk. That way we have some type of that way we have a show, maybe some type of deeper discussion show on some other kind of topic in the Geekverse. We'll just have to see. I don't know. I'm thinking about that. I'm still trying to think about how to revise a bunch of different things for what the best way to do things is around here. Most effective way to do things. So we will see. But tomorrow night, I am doing another dinner and a board game. So I'll be back tomorrow night. 6:30. We'll start early. 6:30. I'm going to be playing another one of the Hero Quest solo quests with the Barbarian for the Frozen Horror. So I had a lot of fun with that last Friday. So I'm going to do that again. I can't believe another week has gone by. So that's already here. Don't think that I'm making the kind of progress that I need to be making, but I hardly ever do. All right. So we were trying to take a look at mass combat because after the rules cyclopedia, we were kind of interested, or at least I was interested in this idea of running the whole world. And the domain level play, there was extensive combat. Actually, the siege rules were even more extensive than just the basic combat rules in the rules cyclopedia. So it seems like in different iterations of Dungeons and Dragons, we've kind of lost that element. I can't imagine like Wizards of the Coast releasing something like that today, or even if they did release it, or I can't really actually see them releasing something like that. But even if they did, it wouldn't be anywhere near that detailed. And of course, there have been attempts to kind of put it back into the game. But one of the things that I was thinking about when I was reading the rules cyclopedia was mass combat by GURPS. Now GURPS, this is kind of a simulationist kind of way to play. And of course, GURPS is point-based, and it also is generic, of course, the generic universal role-playing system, so that you can play in all different kinds of tech levels, fantasy, historical. You can add in sci-fi elements or the fantastic elements. You can do all of that, and it does have an engine for mass combat. And it seems like in both of these cases with mass combat, because we were reading yesterday how to raise armies and how your force is actually going to be constructed. And there was a lot on that in here, and there was a lot on that in the rules cyclopedia as well. It seems like both of these put a lot of emphasis on figuring out exactly what your force is composed of. But if I recall, because I have read GURPS Mass Combat before, it still doesn't end up as a war game. So there's a lot of emphasis put on trying to put together all of the forces, and then like there was in the rules cyclopedia. But even once you got to the fight, well, there was a lot of stuff that you were supposed to plan going forward in the beginning, and a lot of information you were supposed to have about your force. But when it came down to the actual fight, well, you were going to resolve that in a lot less time than it would take to actually play out a war game. Good morning, James. Good morning. There we go. Good morning, James. Good to see you. So I think this is going to be the same kind of thing here. Now, we could go to a full war game engine, and we do have the AD&D. In fact, did I put that on this list over here? I don't know. The AD&D battle system, which basically is a war game, which the battle is out. Let's go ahead and go to the war game. And I had talked about the holy grail of a system being one that could operate on multiple levels, going all the way from a role-playing game, go down from a role-playing game to a warband game, or a skirmish game, depending on how you want to define it, and then a battle game, so you're focused on the battle, or up on the campaign level, or the whole kingdom running level. So GURPS could possibly do that, but I'm not sure that there is like campaign play or the domain level play, the domain level play. I don't know that I've seen that specifically, although it might be there. There are books like Social Engineering in GURPS and so forth, which somebody recommended in the comments that we take a look at social engineering. There's a GURPS book dedicated to that. All right, so let's take a look at this. But first, hey, let's take a look at let's go ahead and have our sip here. I sipped and was like, oh yeah, we've got to do that. So let's just take a moment to breathe and enjoy breath and take a sip of our favorite beverage here. So 2 deep breaths, complete exhale, and then take a sip of your favorite beverage. So everybody together now. Here we go. And sip. So there we go. All right. Now, where we were last time, we had basically just been through understanding all of the elements of our force. And the next thing up was elements tech level 0 to 5. It says the best troops have been the Carthaginians under Hannibal, the Romans under the Scipios, the Macedonians under Alexander, the Prussians under Frederick. Someday my army of Italy and that Austerlitz may be equaled, but surely never surpassed. Napoleon Bonaparte. So tech levels, GURPS, because it's a generic system, has different tech levels that a society can adhere to. Everything from tech level 0 up to tech level, was it 12 or something like that? So tech level 5, we're going tech level 0 to tech level 5 right here. And of course, different, if you're planning out a world, not every civilization in a world has to be the same tech level. But then also, if you want to get more sophisticated, not every civilization has to have the same tech level across all of its different types of tech. We talked about, like, if you're trying to build out a classic Star Trek civilization, it'd be very advanced in things like physics, but its computer technology wouldn't be all that advanced. And its biotechnology and stuff wouldn't be that advanced. So you can play around with that. So Jonathan Reese says, GURPS does support domain play, of course. That depends on what you want to do with it. Social engineering supports organizations as well as interpersonal skills. So that's, I think I just mentioned social engineering. So social engineering is one of those that I have looked at, but seems to be one of the ones that might most include those types of rules. So, I mean, I know you can do it. I mean, you can do just about anything with GURPS. So social engineering may be the one that we need to look at if we're looking for most rules like domain level play. Now, like because I'm thinking in the core books, you don't really see that in the core books, but you do see skills. Like you're talking about interpersonal skills and things like that. You do have skills in GURPS that would be relevant to running a kingdom or an organization or things like that. Okay, organization. Most large forces adopt company-sized units of 50 to 150 men, and so that's 5 to 15 elements. As we said, elements at this level is about 10 people. So this is still pretty detailed. At the Rules Cyclopedia, you were tracking it by the individual person, but at least here your element is about 10 people, or in later tech levels, an organization, a squad, such as the 80 to 100 strong Roman century, simply because that's the largest force that any single leader can control at once. The armies of organized states or structured or nomad empires often have a regular structure with standardized units of intermediate and large size, such as Rome's 6th century cohort, about 60 elements, and 10 cohort legion, approximately 600 elements. The decimal systems of many Middle Eastern and Asian armies, or the decimal system of many Middle Eastern and Asian armies. These are often supplemented by allied auxiliaries. So irregular forces adopt an ad hoc organization based on clan or tribal allegiances, or have contingents of various sizes led by the leaders of the district's feudal fiefs or towns that contribute them. The ruler usually has a permanent guard of household troops, supplemented by a general call-up of part-time warriors and professional mercenaries, often foreigners, drawn by the promise of pay, booty, or land. Battlefield formations are frequently based on marching order. The vanguard on the right, the main body in the center, or rear guard on the left. By tech level 4 and tech level 5, many states adopt a modern organization as detailed in Chapter 3, although the distinction between platoon and company remains vague. Both typically refer to that having between 5 and 15 elements. Okay. So this is gonna give us some examples of our different types of land of elements. See, cavalry versus infantry. Cavalry are expensive. Horses are costly to breed and equip, and horsemen take extra effort to train. While mounts don't demand pay, cavalry still cost more to maintain than equivalent infantry because horses consume more provisions. However, cavalry are useful for winning battles. Equally matched low-tech infantry forces tend to fight to a stalemate. They rarely move fast enough to enable a good general to exploit enemies' weaknesses. Cavalry give a commander a maneuverable, mobile force that responds quickly to commands, and that can be used to scout, strike at vulnerable points, outflank a foe's line, and respond rapidly to surprise attack. If one side has more or better cavalry, this usually gives its leader a battle-winning advantage. Cavalry are also vulnerable for screening a marching force. Infantry take a relatively long time to deploy from a marching column to a solid line of battle. Cavalry do so in moments. James says, what about breaking horses rather than breeding? Much faster. That's what the American army did mostly. I don't know. You know, I remember when I was playing Warhammer that it actually didn't cost that much to put somebody on a mount. And, you know, as far as your point value. But that was just there's only like 3 more points for a mount or something like that. And I guess it worked. I guess it was balanced because you're not worried about logistics in that game. That was Warhammer Fantasy battles. You're just talking about fighting one battle. I mean, you know, when they rode horses into battle, not just for parades. Yeah, I don't know. So land elements, we've got different examples here. So the majority of battlefield elements in a low-tech force are infantry and cavalry. Starting at tech level 4, they are often supplemented by increasing proportions of artillery thanks to the rapid evolution of the gunpowder cannon. So let's see. So I was kind of expecting a little bit more here. Okay, so like horse artillery, these are types of land elements. But just so I know how this integrates into the system, I was expecting it to give me more. So here is, for example, our element type. So our element would be light infantry. So I wonder if we're going to have light infantry down there. But we're going to need its troop strength, its class, its weight, its mobility, what it costs to raise, maintain, and tech level. So we're going to need that. So I was expecting it to give me more information on that. For instance, we just say like artillery, heavy artillery. So we do have light infantry. So light infantry is here. But it just says this is tech level 1, swift-footed soldiers. This is like, I believe that's when they're introduced. Reading tech level element statistics. Oh, okay. So here it is on a table over here. I was like, okay, so I need some statistics here. So, for instance, light infantry, it says, are swift-footed soldiers who would rather skirmish by throwing missiles, striking from ambush, or making hit-and-run raids than stand and fight. They wear little to no armor, but may carry bucklers or small shields. Usually, arms includes clubs, darts, javelins, long knives, short spears, short swords, shurikens, slings, and similar light skirmish weapons. This troop type also includes all bowmen and tech level 4 musketeers who don't fire in massed formations, and most low-tech special operations forces such as spies, assassins, and in fantasy backgrounds, stealthy little people such as halflings and gnomes. So, okay, so we do get statistics on these. So we've got heavy artillery, which is tech level 2, light artillery, tech level 2. At tech level 2, these are semi-portable torsion power bolt throwers such as scorpions at tech level 2 to 3, or light cannons or rockets at tech levels 4 and 5. Horse artillery comes into play at tech level 5. Light field gun and ammunition carriages drawn by teams of horses. Heavy artillery at tech level 2 is torsion-powered stone or bolt throwers. At tech level 3, sometimes supplemented by counterweight trebuchets and early bombards. Tech level 4 to 5, this consists of increasingly effective smoothbore cannon, mostly firing round shot or canister, or possibly inaccurate but impressive rockets. Heavy artillery lacks tactical mobility but has far less range than at tech level 6, but can be useful in pitched battles and sieges. Cavalry, we do have heavy cavalry, light chariots. No, excuse me, that says heavy chariots. So heavy chariots, light chariots, heavy cavalry, horse archers, light cavalry, medium cavalry, and cavalry pistols. Heavy cavalry in close formation. This is a tech level 4 unit or element, wearing decent armor and armed with sword and a brace of wheel-lock pistols at tech level 4. From tech level 5, they generally have more reliable flintlocks or short carbines. Okay, so we do have medium. Okay, so for infantry, we've got Stone Age warriors. That's our tech level 0 right there, the Stone Age. A hunting party or war band equipped and fighting as per light infantry below, but with more primitive weapons such as flint-tipped arrows and spears. We do have bowmen. So I think we know what our stats are. So we've got a troop strength is troop strength. In parentheses, it's a support. The TS counts at full value when calculating specialist class superiority. What class it belongs to, what weight it's given, that's troop weight. That's like what it costs to move, like, to transport. Mobility, cost to raise, cost to maintain, and then what tech level it is. So we also have medium infantry, heavy infantry, pikemen appear at level 2. Musketeers appear at tech level 4, line infantry tech level 5, and skirmishers at tech level 5. Again, like if we were talking about the domain level play, I mean, this is a lot of fun stuff, but this is for the domain level play for any type of game or any type of GURPS game. This is a lot of stuff, but this is almost, well, really it is the meta level book for the creation of whatever world it is that you're running. So this is great information, but it needs somebody to come and create a world specific book to put all of it together, strip out what you don't need, add in all of the specialist stuff for a particular world. That's what it really needs. So we do have all of the land elements, and so yeah, we've got the statistics that each one of these needs. Line infantry, tech level 5. So musketeers, tech level 4. Infantry with smallbore matchlock muskets in the era before the socket bayonet. They can pierce all but the strongest armor, but without the bayonet, they're vulnerable to cavalry attack while slowly reloading. As such, balanced forces will often contain heavy infantry, pike and shot, and cavalry. Musketeers carry swords and wear helmets and often breastplates and a leather coat for protection. Whereas line infantry, by tech level 5, soldiers armed with a musket and a socket bayonet. They march in step and fight in close formation, forming thin lines 2 to 3 deep for musket fire, a square to meet cavalry charges, or sometimes massed columns for close assault. Line infantry are often accompanied by drummers or other musicians to sound orders. Skirmishers, tech level 5. Foot soldiers trained to fight in a looser skirmish formation with musket or rifle. This is light infantry at mid-tech level 5 and most infantry for late tech level 5. Let's see. Okay. Other include draft teams, mounts. This represents enough ponies, horses, camels, or other riding beasts to transport any weight 1 foot mobility element at mounted speeds, but without granting cavalry superiority. So that's like dragoons. That's mounted infantry, if you actually want to make them mounted infantry. Miners, which are your experienced engineers trained for siege and counter-siege operations. War beast, elephants, war elephants, and others, such as fantasy dinosaurs trained for battle. A balloon, a hot air balloon and ground team. This is a tech level 5 thing, used primarily for over-the-horizon observation. Not air mobile, requires another element such as a draft team for transport. So here are naval elements. The earliest naval elements are primarily transportation. As ships and weapons become more advanced, though, the seas become a battlefield in their own right. Note that a few late tech level 5 vessels appear in chapter 3. So we've got tech level 0 to 3 naval elements table. We do have a boat at tech no, that's troop strength 0. What is our tech level 0 boat? I don't see one. Maybe you gotta wait till tech level 1 to get a boat. That would make sense, I suppose. So boat, yeah, boat appears at tech level 1. That's a single war canoe or rowboat capable of carrying 1 infantry or similar sized element plus a small crew. large boat, light galley, long ship, war galley, brig, galleon, frigate, ship of the line. Fantastic elements. So here is adding in, you can create many fantastic elements simply by modifying mundane ones with optional features. So we saw that. So GURPS is all about modularity, right? So we can upgrade any of our existing elements with a bunch of different optional features. And quality, which is going to modify your cost and everything like that. Ghost ship might be a brig given the super soldier feature and elite troop quality to represent its ghostly crew. Another simple but effective approach is to take high-tech elements from Chapter 3 and invoke divergent technology to reach the tech level. For example, a bronze orthonicopter might have the utility aircraft statistic rather than tech level 3 plus 4 rather than tech level 7, while a mechanical steam golem gets light tank stats but is at tech level 4 plus 2 instead of 6. I'm going to have to remember exactly this notation, but it's like that's allowing you to get ahead in a tech level in some particular way. So if you've got mechanical steam, so it's tech level 4, but it's letting you get to, in some kind of fantasy way, 2 tech levels above that. I have to remember the exact. Zero of the Blade says a level 0 naval ship. Tech level 0 naval ship is a log. Yes, that's it. I got the picture of the Stone Age warriors floating on a log to get across the stream or something like that. That's your tech level 0 naval transport. So amphibious warriors. So what do we do here? So this is fantastic elements table. Amphibious. So we got things like amphibious warriors, legged mermen, sea elves, were sharks, water sprites, selkies, fishmen, and similar underwater humanoids capable of operations both on land and in water. Whereas aquatic warriors, such as amphibious warriors, but incapable of land operations, dolphins, tailed mermen, etc. Amphibious warriors, aquatic warriors, battle mages, beasts, flying cavalry. God, when I'm reading all this, it makes me want to get into it and write my own stuff. That, because I was thinking about, well, maybe eventually I'll have to do a GURP supplement for some of the stuff I want to write. Or maybe there's some way to use this as a base. Because there's so much stuff. I mean, GURPS, excuse me, GURPS takes into account so much stuff. We may have to just look at GURPS in general. We did. We've looked at some of the GURPS thaumatology, and we've looked at GURPS, just how it resolves basic actions. Because that was back for a while. We used to just do a different RPG every day because we were just specifically looking at how to resolve combat, or not combat, just actions in general. So we did do a day on just resolving GURPS. So it's there. If you're not familiar with GURPS, just look up Morning Grind and GURPS. And we did a rundown basically just on how to play. So flying beasts, flying infantry. I thought these were going to be modifications, but they're not quite that. So the modifications were the optional elements. So the optional features that we looked at, because I mean, they can definitely be fantasy or, or technology or whatever makes that make most sense. We do have giant monster, a ferocious and usually non-humanoid monster of size giant, but lacking manipulatory ability, like a house-sized spider, a 50-foot long serpent, or a wingless dragon. Flying infantry can occur at tech level 0. A group of angels, demons, or similar performing as light infantry, but with aerial capability. Flying cavalry, riders on flying horses, such as knights on griffins or winged horses, or those aboard flying or levitating carpets or brooms. Flying mages, witches on brooms, levitating mages, witches on flying carpets or aerial beasts, and similar flying sorcerers. A lot of these have multiple classes. Flying mages, air, artillery, C3I, F, and reconnaissance. So elements, tech level 6 to 12. Let me give you some advice, Lieutenant. Don't become a general. Don't ever become a general. If you become a general, you just have plain too much to worry about. General Dwight D. Eisenhower. I don't understand. DJ. What do you think about this stat? This stat bonus D&D plus proficiency modifier 5, 10, 15, 20 plus mods plus 3d6 as D&D stat bonus. Roll 1 time at start of round, luck and performance for round. I'm not exactly sure what all of that means. It looks like you do have a lot of large proficiency bonuses there, which in general I'm for. You know, I want to look at one RPG that has not come up a lot with the discussion here, but is Amber. That's a diceless RPG. I bring this up because when I was talking about preferring less randomness in the game, there's always somebody who's like, well, just go play something that is completely diceless. And of course, that's not the point, right? I said that I like things that are, I like less randomness in the game. I didn't say I like no randomness in the game. But nonetheless, this Amber game, I do want to look at because it's completely diceless and it doesn't have any kind of random element. Depends on what you mean by diceless. Sometimes when people say, oh, it's diceless, it might have cards as a random element. But at least here, so that would be diceless, but you could still have a random element with cards. But at least the way I'm using the term, I mean without a random element. So I do want to look at Amber. Oh, James says Amber was the first non-D&D game I ever played. James Bacon says, I don't think anyone remembered it. I know very little about it. I looked at it very briefly and went, oh, I don't remember if it was while we were doing the morning grind or not, or it might have been slightly before. So I looked at it briefly, but I want to look at it in more detail. James Bacon says they do have a powered by GURPS licensing, but the details are not public. Right. You're right. So maybe if the morning grind or that kind of things like this were big enough, I would get it. I did briefly talk to them. I believe it was Andrew about a powered by GURPS license at Gen Con one year. I did do that. And he said basically to get in touch with him because I was considering that for the Journey to the Tree of Sorrows RPG. We were evaluating a bunch of different options, and so powered by GURPS was one of them that I would like. Of course, David ultimately wanted to go with D&D 5e, so we went with that. This was a long time ago, before all of the all of the OGL situation, every other situation that came up. But anyway, we wrote it for 5e, but you know. He won't remember. We just spoke briefly on the subject. So it's probably something that can be gotten. I mean, it's probably like if you have a good enough pitch. I mean, the Savage Worlds is not public, right? Well, you're talking about it's not open. You're talking about the details aren't all that public. There are some additional information on like how to do Savage Worlds. And you've got to actually get permission from them to do it. But I've got a friend who got permission to do it. So if you set up the right pitch, maybe it's possible. Jonathan Reese says Amber Diceless has no random elements at all. So, you know, in fact, in some ways, I want to look at that probably relatively soon. I was going to I was thinking, you know, there are other things to look at, but actually there's still quite a few of these different systems over here. And Knave 2nd edition, there is maybe tomorrow we take a look at Knave 2nd edition. Or whenever we finish this GURPS Mass Combat, because I do want to take a look at what he's put out as a preview for the Knave RPG. So that's coming. That we should probably do that one soon since it's on Kickstarter. But Amber, I want to look at because that's basically going in a different way. So instead of going, hey, let's start with the dice, I want to take a look at the diceless side of things and then say, well, now wait a minute, what if we just go entirely diceless, but then we move it slightly into the slightly more random, because it often seems like we started when we were talking about this subject, starting with the very random, like 5th edition engine, right? That's what I started talking about when I was making some videos like last year or something like that. Starting with a very random system and how do you make it less random, sort of move it this way. But what if you started with a completely not random system and then just moved it a little bit further to where I'd want it? I think looking at it from both sides is an interesting idea. Oh, and come to think of it, another thing that as far as news goes, this is kind of a news element. I got notification that the One Ring 5e game is coming out. Now we've looked at the One Ring, or I looked at it before I was doing live shows. So the One Ring is down there, but originally I did look and I thought I had like One Ring 5e stuff. So I guess this is the revised version that's coming out. This is the Lord of the Rings role-playing game. And originally I was very skeptical at the One Ring or being able to do Middle Earth with 5e. But as I remember it, a long time ago, when I was reading like the 5e first edition, it was better than I was expecting it to be. So Jonathan says, Amber is worth looking at. The combat chapter is really thought-provoking. Hardest game I ever ran as a GM. Oh, interesting. So at tech level 6, infantry continue to march, but motorized vehicles and aircraft replace cavalry and supplement artillery. On land, tanks and other armored vehicles become the primary arm of decision, at least until air power and futuristic technologies can defeat them. So now most modern forces are organized into highly standardized units. What these are called are organized into highly standardized units. What these are called vary from nation to nation, and smaller militaries and irregular forces frequently omit certain levels or use other titles, but the following organization is typical. A platoon of 2 to 8 elements, squads, vehicles, or guns. A platoon leader is usually rank 3. So you've got different military rank in GURPS. So this is telling you that you can buy as part of your advantages. A company, cavalry troop, or artillery battery of 2 to 4 platoons. Units at this level and above also have support personnel, cooks, medics, drummers, heavy weapons crews, etc., as well as special purpose troops such as engineers and scouts, which may be attached temporarily or permanently. Led by someone rank 4, battalion, 2 to 5 companies under rank 5. A brigade or a regiment consists of 2 or more battalions and a leader of rank 6. Division consists of 2 or more brigades or regiments with a leader of rank 7. A corps or an army group consists of 2 or more divisions plus attachments of a leader of rank 8 or general or field marshal. Low tech upgrades. It's possible to upgrade the tech level 0 to 5 troops in Chapter 2 with higher tech level versions of their primitive gear. For instance, all infantry with mail and swords made of better alloys or light cavalry riding motorbikes or robot steeds. Rather than doubling each TL, add 25% to TS past tech level 5. It's like you could play a whole civilization game with this, right? You could create, now you probably, now if we had rules, we'll have to look at social engineering. Do I have social engineering? Let me look that up. That seems like you could do an entire level of play if you wanted to go through all these different tech levels like a game of civilization. Yeah, I do not see social engineering in my library, so I'm gonna have to buy that one. On the other hand, it's probably easier just to stay with one tech level for like a whatever your game world is. So infantry elements, headquarters, and weapons teams. Each of these elements represent a squad or man-portable heavy weapons team. Combat engineers, also called pioneers. These are the modern versions of the sappers and miners of the tech level 2 to 5 armies. They're infantry soldiers trained to overcome obstacles and fix defenses and are valuable for city fighting and siege or amphibious operations. Command post. At tech level 6, it's a few maps plus some field telephones or radios. At tech level 8, it may be packed with computers and bristling with antennas for radios and satellite uplinks, although the map table remains. They're usually assigned at either company or battalion level. A CP is immobile on its own. It's usually transported by truck or in an armored vehicle. Draft team, heavy weapons, heavy support weapons. So let's see. We should have, okay, so we do. Here are all our land element table right here. So, okay, there's a lot of elements. So I'm glad it already breaks all this down for you. Mortar team, mounted rifles, riflemen below riding horses, camels, or other mounts that are still used at high-tech levels, especially in underdeveloped regions where animals are easier to maintain than trucks. Troopers usually dismount to fight, leaving the horses at the edge of the battle arena. So that's mounted rifles at tech level 6. Riflemen tech level 6, the poor bloody infantry. At tech level 6, most riflemen use bolt-action rifles and wear steel helmets. At tech level 7, each soldier has an semi-automatic or even automatic weapon, and there's a machine gun and or grenade launcher in every squad. Some troops have fragmentation vests. By tech level 8, bullet-resistant vests are standard, and rifles may have integrated grenade launchers or electronic targeting systems. At tech level 9, assume that body armor includes integrated fire control and communication systems so that most weapons can fire smart munitions. Troopers at tech level 10 plus receive full suits of climate-controlled body armor, and some may even use electromagnetic or beam weapons. This is supposed to be 6 through 12. Okay. So battle suits is tech level 9. An infantry squad in powered armor, or perhaps the most with full combat cyborg bodies. They have heavy rail guns and beam weapons and also missile launchers for indirect and anti-tank fire. Towed heavy weapon elements include anti-tank guns, heavy anti-aircraft artillery, heavy artillery, light artillery, and theater defense sites. Do not needlessly endanger your lives until I give you the signal. Dwight D. Eisenhower. Armored car, assault guns, heavy tank, heavy truck, light anti-aircraft artillery, light tank, light truck, medium tank, motor recon, self-propelled mortar, troop carrier, armored personnel carrier, combat engineering vehicle, infantry fighting vehicle, large armored personnel carrier, main battle tank. That's tech level 7. A mass-produced tank that combines the heavy tank's firepower with armor with the medium speed. Such tanks are the primary striking arm of tech level 7 to 9 land armies. Ultra-tech main battle tank elements can represent giant robots instead of tanks. Let's see. Mobile surface-to-air missiles, self-propelled anti-aircraft artillery. Super tank, tech level 10, a super heavy tank or giant robot or super heavy giant robot tank with exotic composite armor, powerful rail guns or beam weapons, and an entire arsenal of missiles. The whole principle of naval fighting is to be free to go anywhere with every damned thing the Navy possesses. Admiral Sir John Fisher. So naval elements as well. Oh, now we got submarines. When do submarines appear? Naval elements in combat, capital ship, carrier, escort ships, flat attack boat, gunboat, submarine appears at tech level 6, guided missile, escort, nuclear submarine. Air elements include airship, medium light aircraft, piston engine bomber, piston engine fighter bomber, scout aircraft, airborne early warning system, jet bomber, military satellite constellation, drop ship at tech level 9, an armed assault shuttle capable of deploying troops from orbit, flying battle suits. That caret right there means super science. So flying battle suits, a squad of battle suits with grav belts or super efficient jetpacks. So a flying battleship at tech level 10, super science, a mobile air fortress or flying aircraft carrier, or a small or medium-sized space warship that's capable of hovering and fighting in atmosphere. All right. So how do we use all of this to actually do something? James says GURPS is so exhaustingly comprehensive and somehow also miraculously simple to follow. I really do like it. Yeah, I agree. I wish I had played more of it. I was never in a regular GURPS group. Okay, so what do we do with this? Where the land will be fought, where the battles will be fought, is determine what elements will be in play. Land, naval, air. Air is a battle fought entirely in the air, the Battle of Britain in World War II, or the Desert Storm air campaign during the Gulf War. Only air combat elements or elements that neutralize them are combatants. Amphibious. So, for example, in the borderlands of the medieval realm of Cathanas, Sir Richard's small army is defending his lord's fief against a would-be usurper, Ian Strickland. Sir Richard fears that Strickland's troops, including a contingent of orc mercenaries, will ravage the countryside if he just holes up in his castle. He decides to march out down the road to meet Strickland's oncoming host. This will be a land campaign, albeit a fairly simple one. So good, we do get an example. Okay, preparations. Determining each fighting force's makeup by element, noting in particular each element's troop strength TS. For each side, total the TS of all elements and find the force's troop strength. Count parenthetical TS's only 10% of its value, or 0 if the element's sole class is C3I. It's also useful to make separate notes of the total TS for each class of element, although this may be obvious from individual element records in smaller battles. Because you're supposed to, I remember it saying that you can get advantages if you have superiority in a particular class. Like, for instance, you have cavalry and your enemy does not, or a superior force of cavalry and they don't. If a force doesn't already have leaders, decide who's in charge. The commander is responsible for military planning and leadership. The relevant skills are strategy and leadership. GURPS is, of course, a skills-based game. It's got your core attributes, 4 core attributes, but then everything else is advantages, disadvantages, and skills. Intelligence chief organizes scouting missions and intelligence gathering operations and briefs the commander on known or suspected enemy movements. The relevant skill is intelligence analysis. Quartermaster organizes supply and non-combat elements. The relevant skill is administration. In Tech Level 6 and some 0 to 5 armies, commanders rely on their staff to advise them. In all Tech Level 6 and in some Tech Level 0 to 5 armies, commanders rely on their staff to advise them. This may be a formal arrangement like a modern headquarters staff or an informal collection of helpers. If the PCs can't fill in all the necessary staff roles, the GM should create appropriately skilled NPCs. So, for instance, the GM determines the strength of the opposing forces. See Appendix A for Richard's forces. Strickland's host is similar, but its members are swelled by orc mercenaries, bowmen, and medium infantry. Sir Richard commands his force and has a strategy of 10 and leadership of 12. He assigns his friend Cheryl Navari, another PC, to handle intelligence. She has no intelligence analytic skill. Maybe she shouldn't be the one in charge of that. But her IQ 13 gives her a default of 7. An NPC, John Wyatt, serves as quartermaster. He has an administration of 12. Sir Ian Strickland serves as both commander and intelligence chief for his force. Strickland has a strategy of 12, leadership 11, and intelligence analysis 14. His steward, Craddock, is his quartermaster and has an administration of 11. Let me see, where is the write-up? This looks like our tables here. Sample forces, a modern military force. On Earth, this is their fantasy world here. This is the force of Sir Richard's command throughout the running example in Chapter 4. Sir Richard hails from Earth, a Tech Level 3 fantasy world of GURPS Banestorm. Its forces are typical of a backcountry barony. 30 knights in plate, the Baron's Guard, 50 spearmen in leather armor with shields, and 20 crossbowmen. As well, 10 dwarves from Zarek were visiting the castle to install a new gate, and by emphasizing the hated orcs that Strickland has in his host, Sir Richard convinces them to take up arms too. Finally, Richard himself is a good fighter, a 400-point character, and the GM decides he's worth at least a squad of men. So, for instance, this is what his roster would look like. 3 knights, or 3 elements worth of knights. Heavy cavalry, 5 of spearmen, heavy infantry, 2 elements of crossbowmen, 1 element of dwarves, and then Sir Richard himself. So the knights, the GM represents the 30 knights as 3 heavy cavalry elements. They're good quality troops with fine quality equipment, but like many knights, they have the impetuous feature. Heavy cavalry or tech level, TS5, excuse me, that's just TS, troop strength 5. Thus, 3 elements have a TS of 15. Good troops get plus 50% to TS, while fine equipment adds another 100%. So their final TS is 37.5. So that's how we've got that right there. Class cavalry, mounted, features impetuous. Spearmen, the GM deems the 50 spearmen to be 5 heavy infantry elements right here with a TS of 4. They're average troops with basic equipment, so there's no modifier. Total TS is 20. Crossbowmen, there are 2 elements of crossbowmen, TS 2 apiece. Average troops, basic equipment, so net is 4. The GM treats the Zarek contingent as 1 element of miners with fine equipment. Miners are one of the few tech level 0 to 5 troops whose TS changes with tech level, doubling every TL after they first appear at tech level 2. As the dwarves are tech level 3, their base is tech level 0.5, doubles the TS to 1. Fine equipment adds plus 100% for TS 2. Sir Richard is an effective fighter who in the past has shown he can take down 10 to 15 normal men. We have normal men again. He can take down 10 to 15 normal men. We need to institute that as a unit of measurement. How do we measure things in terms of normal men? However, while he's a knight, he usually fights on foot. The GM therefore rules that Sir Richard is a hero element who fights as if he were a single element, that is a 10-man squad of heavy infantry, but with elite troop quality and fine equipment. Thus, Richard has a base TS of 4, raised by 100% for elite quality, and another 100% for fine quality, giving it a TS 12. So there we are right here. That means that he has a force TS of 75.5. And then we break this down by how much cavalry has he got? 37.5. How much engineering has he got? 2. And how much fire? So fire comes from the crossbowman, which is 4. So if we're seeing who is superior in a particular class, we can do that right here. All right. So that's his force roster. Where were we? Oh, right here. Okay, so operations. It said Ian Strickland's force was similar, but it has orcs, orc bowmen, and orc foot soldiers. So operations involve the maneuvering of opposing military forces. The decision of how to move and where to go are best worked out by the GM, depending on the campaign and the geography. Forces are usually trying to do one of the following: seek and destroy the enemy force, hide from the enemy, often while raiding his supply lines, advance toward an objective, either to capture it or to hold or reinforce it, retreat from the enemy, hopefully to a more defensible location, defend an objective, escort a convoy or moving force, patrol or secure territory, ravage inhabited territory, perform field exercises that simulate any of the above, which are performed near an enemy frontier, may either send a message or return into the real thing. May either send a message or turn into the real thing. Rally, rest, or train troops. So this is different things you may be trying to do operationally. When a military force battle a monster or a small disorganized group of monsters, it's unrealistic to assume the creatures would require military skills. The GM should instead assign them a simple cunning value, usually equal to the monster's IQ or perception, whichever is higher, and use it for all relevant skill rolls. The force is assumed to be a body of troops or ships operating together under a commander, all of which's elements are close to one another to participate in the fighting. This means that within shouting distance at low tech levels, at higher tech levels, the forces may be spread out over several miles, and could also include naval, air, artillery elements even further away. Elements with fast air mobility may be attached to a force even if they aren't fighting or based or moving with it. If several forces are operating in the region, decide which force they're supporting during any given period. Depending on whether or not it's on the march or sailing, a force is classed as either mobile or encamped, at anchor for naval elements. Example, Strickland's force is marching from his manor to the Baron's castle, about 15 miles away to seize it. Sir Richard is advancing to meet him. Both are following local roads, but it's rural country. There's a chance that one force will get word of the other, enabling them to prepare a surprise or ambush. So both forces count as mobile. The speed at which mobile forces depend on mobility type and represents the average travel speed of a military column or formation. On land, this is limited by the logistical element's ability to keep up, the time required to make or break camp, and the need to send out scouts or patrols to reduce the risk of ambush. Excluding any supporting fast air elements, a force normally moves at the speed of its slowest elements. However, elements with a transport capability can carry other elements. And we saw that. So land and air mobility travels per day. Foot, 20 miles per day on roads, 10 miles off-road. Mechanized, 80 miles a day on roads, or 60 miles a day off-road. Plus 25% per tech level past tech level 6. Motorized, 120 miles a day on good roads, 60 miles a day on dirt roads, or 20 miles a day off-road. 25% plus 25% per tech level past tech level 6. Mounted is 30 miles a day on roads or 15 miles a day off-roads. Air, slow air. Elements move at the same speed as foot elements. This represents their forward air base, camp, or lair being moved forward. However, they can range out to support combat within 100 miles. Fast air elements can provide support anywhere within their regional theater of operations. Jonathan says, James Bacon, yeah, one of the weird effects of GURPS is that most of the time I pick up a random licensed RPG, I end up going, or I could have just used GURPS and it would have worked better. That was one of the advantages. I mean, the advantage of one of the groups that I did play with, and this other guy was in a regular group, and that's basically what they made the decision. They said, all right, we want to play in a whole bunch of different things, so why not just learn one system? So they just went all in with GURPS. And then played a variety of different types of worlds. Worlds, games, whatever they wanted to play, and they would cycle around being the game master. So like the GURPS game then was one of the first ones that I played that was not just your general fantasy. This was one where we were modern day, but then we were sucked into very early on. We went through some kind of portal or something like that, and we were in some type of alternate world universe or something like that. So it was intentionally taking advantage of doing something that was, cross worlds, cross kind of tech levels, that kind of stuff that wasn't just typical fantasy. Rogue Thinker says, I remember getting GURPS back in '86 and loving it ever since. It's super simple and as crunchy as you like. Jonathan Reese says, I can 100% see that happening. Rogue Thinker says, rumor is they stopped adapting the World of Darkness, vampire, werewolf, etc., because the adaptations worked better than the original books. Really? That's the rumor. I can see that being out there. We have not looked at that one. I don't know anything about the original vampire or werewolf books. We haven't gotten into that. Let's see. So factors affecting movement, bad weather. Escorting civilians have travel speed of escorting ordinary civilians, such as refugees. Civilians suffer twice the casualties that military forces do on failed forced marches roll. Okay, forced march, that can speed you up. On land, a commander may push his force to move up to 1.5 normal speeds. For each day of forced march, the quartermaster must make a roll versus administration at +3 for the first day with a cumulative -1 point past the first. At +2 on day 2, at +1 on day 3, and so forth. Switching to normal speed or encamping erases the penalty. Any failure means the force takes 5% casualties, or 10% on a critical failure, exactly as if it had suffered combat losses. This represents injury, breakdowns, disease, desertion, straggling, or death. Optionally, GM may treat any march through extremely hostile terrain as forced instead of extra speed. Success means no casualties were sustained. Traveling at night, environmental issues. The terrain, weather, and roads rules on basic page 351 may apply to troops. So B, that always tells you you're going back to the basic rules in GURPS. Basic rule book, page 351, may apply to troops marching on foot or land. Don't worry about fatigue or hiking skill. Those things are factored into the troops' mobility statistics and forced march rules. No security. A commander may risk traveling without proper military security precautions. This is done while moving through friendly territory or if the enemy is believed to be elsewhere. The force is strung out in a very long column, and precautions such as sending out scouts and pitching proper camps are neglected. This doubles speed but gives -5 in the reconnaissance test below, should the march involve contact with the enemy. Recon splitting forces. So here's our example. Both Sir Richard and Strickland have a mix of foot and mounted forces. As they're moving on roads, travel speed is 20 miles a day, the speed of the foot. They started out about 15 miles apart, broke camp in the early morning hours, and headed toward each other, closing at about 40 miles per day. Neither is making a forced march. The GM consults his map of the area and decides the force will enter the same general area just before noon. A land force that's camped or defending a stronghold, a naval force that's anchored in port, or an air force that's remaining over its base is encamped. This doesn't necessarily mean it's doing nothing. Possible postures are patrolling. The force is sending out patrols to secure the surrounding area and gain intelligence of possible enemy movement. Bunkered, hunkered down in camp, alert and ready for trouble. This gives less of a chance of being ambushed, but no chance of ambushing the enemy. Or no security. As with mobile forces, this means the force isn't taking any but the most rudimentary security precautions. It's less excusable while encamped, but still common for forces that don't expect trouble, especially during peacetime or even in wartime if you're deep within friendly territory. Okay, reconnaissance operations. Oh, World of Darkness would have worked better than as originally written. We may have to look at those. Well, original World of Darkness was super broken. GURPS Vampire let people play vampires without the system doing bizarre breaks. That's one I haven't ever played either. So occasionally, a battle begins by mutual arrangement. For example, the enemy host marches toward a defended fortress or city walls, and the garrison lookout spot it miles away. The defenders march out and array themselves in order for battle, and everything proceeds in an orderly fashion. Such actions have occurred throughout history, from the hoplite warfare of ancient Greece to many age of sail naval battles. And if the GM just wants to get down to the fighting, that can happen. Things aren't always that simple, though. Patrols or entire armies can blunder into ambushes, and advancing forces can collide in hasty encounter battles in forest, night, bad weather, or sandstorms. The GM can resolve situations like that abstractly using the reconnaissance contest below. Remember, this step isn't necessary if the battle is occurring by mutual agreement. Okay, but if it's not, the reconnaissance contest, if the GM determines that opposing sides have moved into each other's general vicinity but are still uncertain of their foe's exact location, it's time for a reconnaissance contest, a quick contest in which each force rolls against the average of their intelligence chief's intelligence analysis skill and its commander's strategy skill rounded down. Taking the average reflects the fact that a skilled intelligence chief will sift through constant reports from patrols, scouts, spies, and local inhabitants and existing information on the enemy's numbers and capabilities to extract the nuggets that give him some idea of what the opposition is actually doing, while a competent commander will make sure that his own choices aren't too predictable and that his forces are taking proper security precautions. The intelligence chief makes the roll, but not yet. Many conditions and modifiers affect the contest and its outcomes. So, conditions here. Mobile force modifiers. If a force is mobile, apply these conditions. Flying, -1 if all members of your forces are flying. Forced march, -1 or -2 if the forced march fail is rolled. Roll is failed. No security, -5. Recon in land battle. -1 in a land battle if none of your force's elements are in recon. If none of your force elements are recon. But +2 if all of your force elements are recon. Relationship with locals, +1 for good relations, -1 if the locals are hostile, -1 if using roads for movement, -3 if tied to fixed roads or a rail network due to logistical considerations. Speed +1 if both forces are moving and you're at least 1.5 times as fast as the enemy. So, for example, plus terrain modifiers. Encamped, +3 if bunkered. If you win, treat your victory as a tie. Relationships with the local special class superiority modifiers. Example, the GM decides to require a reconnaissance contest to see whether each force catches the other unaware. Based on the movement decisions made earlier, he rules that Sir Richard and Ian Strickland's force approach each other in rural terrain in good weather during daytime. Sir Richard has strategy of 10, and Cheryl Navarre has a default intelligence analysis of 7. Their average, rounded down, is 8. They receive the following modifiers. -1 for no recon elements in a land battle, +1 for being popular with the locals, and -1 for marching along a road. A net -1 gives them effective skill of 7. That's not so good. The cunning Strickland has strategy 12 and intelligence analysis 14. His average is 13. He gets -1 because the locals are hostile to him. Marching through human lands with orc mercenaries gives a bad impression. And -1 for staying on the road. He has some recon elements, a few light infantry, while Sir Richard has none, giving him the maximum +3 for recon superiority. He has a modified skill of 14. Cheryl rolls well, an 8, but fails by 1 even so. Remember, in GURPS, you're trying to roll low. You're trying to roll equal to or under this, whatever your modified skill is. So rolls well, an 8, but fails by 1 even so. Strickland rolls a mediocre 12 and still succeeds by 2, winning the reconnaissance contest. His margin of victory is 3. So his modified skill is 14. Margin of victory is 3. He rolled a 12. So I guess that's because she failed by 1. And he won by 2. Or she failed her roll by 1. He succeeded his roll by 2. So his margin of victory is 13. So a reconnaissance contest can have 2 basic outcomes, a win or a tie. Consult the terrain and surprise table below for the relevant terrain rating and then determine the results as follows. If the winner's margin of victory equals or exceeds the terrain rating, he achieves surprise. Okay, so here is our terrain type and surprise table. So you won, but based on your terrain, you might not win by enough. If the winner's margin of victory equals or exceeds the terrain rating, he achieves surprise. If he wins by at least 5 or more than that, he gets an ambush. Otherwise, he merely has initiative. For example, in a jungle, in daylight and good weather, a margin of 3 is needed for surprise and 8 for ambush. In plains, however, a margin of 8 is required for surprise and 13 for an ambush. A tie, roll 1d, so that'd be 1d6, because GURPS is all about d6s. A roll less than or equal to the terrain rating means a pitched battle. Anything else means an encounter battle. For example, on a tie in a rural terrain, a pitched battle occurs on a roll of 1d6 by day, 1 to 3 at night. Exception: if both sides critically fail the reconnaissance contest, an encounter battle occurs and both forces start the battle confused. So here is half the terrain rating rounded up at night or underground, reduce it by 1 in bad weather, and half it, and then reduce it by 1 for both. So, for instance, this is the terrain rating. Okay, so it's 5 more than that. So this is the amount that you succeed in order to surprise your enemy. If it's 5 plus this, then you've ambushed them. Example, the terrain is rural, right here. 6 dagger for areas with dense hedgerows, for instance, Normandy's bocage. It would become 5. So the terrain is rural in daylight and in good weather, making the terrain rating a 6. Strickland won the reconnaissance test by 3. His side wins initiative, but doesn't achieve surprise. Reconnaissance is a task in which individual characters can make a huge difference. If adventurers capture the foe's battle plan, a mage reads an enemy's general mind, or daring scout scouting mission discovers a route taken by an opposing army, there is no need to roll a reconnaissance contest. The GM is free to assume that such coups are equivalent to one side automatically winning the contest by whatever margin of victory seems appropriate, and thus the force winning initiative or achieving surprise or ambush as appropriate. So what did this winning initiative mean? If one side has initiative, it means they gained better intelligence than the other enough to set the initial pace of the action. The GM should give the winning intelligence chief a rough estimate within 25% of the enemy forces and their general composition. The winning commander may then choose to deploy his forces to fight a prepared pitched battle or to advance immediately, resulting in a hasty encounter battle. In addition, if the enemy forces are bunkered or is mobile but moving at an equal to or slower speed, the winners may choose to turn back the way they came and avoid battle. Thus, if faster, I suppose that if you realize that, oh my God, the force is something we can't deal with. Thus, if faster and in terrain that permits them to do so, they can completely bypass the rival force. Of course, this means that bypassing any objective that the force was encamped around. Yeah, like bypassing a castle or something. So since Strickland's force won initiative, his scouts give him an estimate of the enemy's force's composition and size. Confident that he has the number and experience, he decides to commit to a pitched battle. The GM describes the scene, taking into account the rural terrain. At midday, the two armies deploy on open fields bound by apple orchards, about a mile from the tiny hamlet of Drake's Cross. Thus, we'll refer to this as the Battle of Drake's Cross. If one side has achieved surprise, it means they've caught the enemy unaware but haven't actually ambushed them. The advantaged force has the option of detailed under winning initiative above, with the difference is that if he chooses an encounter battle, the opposing force will be confused in its first round. If one side achieves an ambush, it means they're able to surprise the foe completely. This may act as detailed under winning initiative above, except that they choose to fight a pitched battle. The enemy will be confused on its first round. So they surprise the foe completely. They win initiative. And if they fight a pitched battle, the enemy will be confused on the first round. Okay, before the battle. This is going to break into a third day here. I see this seems like the kind of thing that I'm sure they wish they had written, wish they could have written for the D&D Cyclopedia. Or for the rules there. James says, I like how scouting and forward detachments are assumed and factored into initiative. Yeah, it seems to be anything that you should automatically be doing, it seems like it's factoring in. And then if you're specifically not doing it, you have to deal with that. But we're not, it's generous in that it's assuming a number of things. Like, especially even when we're talking about supplying the logistics forces, like assume that the logistics forces already have enough to supply themselves. That's their first order of business. And then the excess listed goes to the other side. So we're not in an absolutely endless amount of logistics and writing and trying to figure things out in some kind of endless loop. So let's see. Before the battle, battle may occur by mutual arrangement or due to one side achieving initiative, surprise, or ambush and choosing to fight. Before the battle begins, calculate each force's basic strategy modifier below and possibly its defense bonus. In addition, the GM should describe the opposing force, not necessarily in game terms to each commander, to give them some idea of what they're facing. See initial intelligence below. Except when their side enters the battle confused, commanders will have certain basic information about the enemy before hostilities begin. In an encounter battle, the approximate number of troops of each mobility class within 20%, i.e. about 500 to 600 men on foot and 200 to 250 mounted. The GM will identify elements that will be obviously stick out like giant monsters. In a pitched battle, the name and number of enemy and such details would be obvious at a glance. Heroes aren't identified as such unless they have a reputation that would ensure recognition. After the first round of battle, both sides usually have a much better idea of the situation. The GM can add additional details. However, in bad weather or at night, especially if few or no troops have the ability to see in the dark, things may remain less than clear until the fighting is over. So, for instance, at the Battle of Drake's Cross, the Battle of Drake's Cross is a pitched battle. Thus, Strickland will know that Richard has about 30 knights, 3 elements of heavy cavalry, 50 spearmen, 5 elements of heavy infantry, 20 crossbowmen, 2 elements of bowmen, and 10 dwarf miners, 1 element of miners. That Sir Richard himself counts as a hero element won't be obvious. If it were an encounter battle, Strickland would know only that Sir Richard has about 30 to 40 mounted troops and about 70 to 80 on foot. Okay, so the force's basic strategy modifier is the most fundamental adjustment to its commander's strategy skill. It's maintained from round to round even if the commander changes. Only casualties can change it. Calculate the basic strategy modifier for each side by comparing the forces present at the start of each battle as detailed in the next few sections. It's the sum of these parts. A bonus for relative troop strength for the side, a bonus for relative troop strength for the side with the higher TS. See relative troop strength below. Troop strength modifiers, relative troop strength tables. So here we are, we're talking about a ratio here. So under 1.5 to 1, no change. But like once you get to 2 to 1, you're going to be at +4. All relevant special class superiority modifiers. See special class superiority below. A force may receive a strategy bonus if it has at least twice the TS of that enemy in elements of a particular class, special class. In a land battle, the following categories of special superiority apply: air superiority, armor superiority, artillery, C3I superiority, cavalry superiority, fire superiority. In special situations, we also may need to consider engineering superiority, naval superiority, recon superiority. This doesn't count at all in battle. However, it gives a bonus to the reconnaissance contest. If neither side has elements of that class, neither side gets a bonus. If both forces have elements of that class, divide the higher TS of such elements by the lower and round down to find the odds factor. Look up this table below. So you got to have at least 2 to 1. But if you got 3 to 1, you get more, and 5 to 1, you get even more. But if only one force has elements of that class, treat this as a 5 to 1 or more superiority on the table. So that's huge. If you can bring something the enemy doesn't have at all. Okay, so superiority, class superiority. Casualty modifiers. If a force begins with or suffers casualties, each 5% loss sustained gives -1 to the basic strategy modifier. Normally, this is the only modifier that changes on a round-to-round basis. See casualties on page 37. Other circumstantial bonuses may apply each round depending on the commander's choices and gain or loss of position bonus. So in the Battle of Drake's Cross, Sir Richard's force has the lower troop strength and enjoys no special class superiority, so he has no modifiers. His rival, Strickland, gets +2 for his relative troop strength and +1 for fire superiority, so his basic strategy modifier is +3. See the examples below for how these modifiers were calculated. So relative troop strength. So Sir Richard's force has a total TS of 75.5, as we saw. Strickland's force has a total TS of 120. The odds factor for 75.5 versus TS 120 is 120 divided by 75.5 for 1.59 to 1. That falls into the 1.5 to 1 or more, but less than 2, odds giving him a +2 to strategy. Superiority in class. Right here. Multiple superiority bonuses are cumulative. For instance, a force with a 5 to 1 edge in cavalry and fire elements gets +3 for cavalry superiority and +3 for fire superiority for a net +6. Military superiority could be problematic, lol. So at Drake's Cross, neither side has air, armor, artillery, C3I, or naval elements, so superiority for these classes is irrelevant. Sir Richard and Strickland do both have engineering elements, but there's no camp, city, siege, or amphibious assault involved, so engineering superiority doesn't count. Indeed, only cavalry superiority and fire superiority matter. Sir Richard has cavalry elements, knights, with a total TS of 37.5. Strickland has plenty of infantry, but fewer cavalry, TS 25. Richard has the advantage, but not by 2 to 1 or more, so there's no cavalry superiority bonus. Sir Richard has fire elements, crossbowmen, with a total TS of 4. Strickland has his own crossbowmen plus orcish mercenaries armed with short bows for a total TS of 9. The TS ratio is 9 to 4 for 2.25, which gives Strickland a 2.25 to 1 advantage in fire elements, and thus a +1 for fire superiority. A defensive bonus is a conditional modifier that applies only during a round of battle in which the side possessing it chooses the defend strategy, all-out defense. Who gets this bonus depends on the type of attack. In a pitched battle, the side with initiative receives a defense bonus based on the use of favorable terrain to anchor their defense. In an encounter battle, a side receives a defensive bonus only if they were encamped or hunkered down prior to the battle. The GM sets the value of the bonus. It typically depends on terrain, with a suggested value of +1 in plains or +1d divided by 2 rounding up in other terrain. Exceptionally strong positions, massive trench-like lines of World War I, mountaintops, fortresses, etc. acquire a siege and provide a higher defensive bonus, but you got to see siege later. I think we'll have to do fighting the battle on another day. Because we are about to get into fighting the battle and then special battle situations. Seems like I don't want to start that. So maybe that means that we do that tomorrow, and maybe we do then Knave on Saturday or something. I like this better, I think, than the Rule Cyclopedia. The Rule Cyclopedia is interesting for its for how this all got started, and kind of got me interested in playing something like this. But yeah, I like the GURPS way of doing this here. So I don't know, like, what other game systems have this kind of system. I'm trying to think. Now, of course, we did talk about mass combat. I think it was in we talked about it earlier. Savage Worlds. I think Savage Worlds, when we were looking at the Pathfinder side, I did have something about massed combat in Savage Worlds. Well, all right. I think I am going to get out of here and try to get some other work done. James says, I'm very excited to continue with the GURPS. If you want a break for Knave tomorrow, that's also exciting. Well, I've kind of gotten in the habit of staying with one until it's done. The Knave situation is, I mean, the Kickstarter just started, so there's still plenty of time with Knave. So maybe we continue this and then work on Knave the next day. But all right, everybody, I am out of here. Let's try to be creative and productive. I'm going to try here. Let's try to be creative, productive, and let's get stuff done. So I will see you tomorrow for the morning grind. And then don't forget, tomorrow night, we'll be playing Hero Quest. So see you later.